For a regular city commission meeting. Let's start with roll call vote, please, or roll call, period, please.
Mayor Skidmore,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Allen,
Present.
Commissioner Kaler, Commissioner Clayton,
Present.
and Commissioner Crowley.
Present.
Okay, we do have a quorum, so I want to welcome everybody here in the chambers. Got a full house, it looks like. That's always good to see, as well as those watching on some form of social media. So we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation by Pastor Timothy Roth of Faith Lutheran Church.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. O sovereign God, by your omnipotent hand you have given us dominion over your creation. Yet we, through the abuse of liberty you gave, corrupted your good creation. In our fall you have given governing authorities the sword to curb sin, establish justice, and promote peace. You command them to approve those who do what is good and right according to your will, and to bring your wrath upon those who do wrong in rebellion. Therefore we pray your Spirit be upon these your servants, that they wield the sword according to your will and command. Enlighten and defend them as they deliberate and fulfill their duty. Grant them divine counsel and understanding. Guide them and protect them for the sake of your people and for the general welfare of the citizens of Ottawa. Help them fulfill their responsibilities with integrity by turning to your statutes and following your will. In your almighty name we pray. Amen.
Appreciate that, Pastor. I also appreciate your involvement in our community. I see you at so many chamber coffees, and so I just appreciate you being out in the community like you should, and I appreciate you coming here today too, so thank you very much for that. We'll move on to public comments.
We have one for item XA.
Okay, we'll wait till then to read that then. Let me see, XA. Okay, very good. We'll do that. Next item would be the appointments, presentations, and recognitions. And we have a very important one here, presentation of KMU Power Plant Operator Certificate to John Thompson. But before John presented this, let me just read a little bit about his bio. Very worthy bio, I would say. We're pleased to recognize John Thompson for his outstanding achievement in completing the KMU Power Plant Operations Academy. This program, which consists of approximately 240 hours of instructional contact time spread over 2 years, is designed to train and advance individuals in the electrical generation industry. Through his dedication, John has successfully navigated this rigorous program, demonstrating his commitment to professional growth and excellence. John began his career at the City of Ottawa in April of 2013 as a custodian in the police department and was promoted to senior custodian in 2015. In November of 21, he embraced a new challenge, joining the power plant as Electric Plant Operator 1, and in November of 24, it was promoted to Operator 2. Since then, John has continued to excel, also completing the KU Public Management Center's Emerging Leaders Academy in June of 24. His positive attitude, dedication to continuous improvement, and exceptional service to the citizens of Ottawa are evident in all he does. And tonight, we celebrate John's accomplishment in earning this certificate, which further highlights his growth and readiness for future leadership opportunities. Congratulations, John, on this well-deserved recognition, and thank you for your continued commitment to our community. John. I should introduce, yes, come on up here. John Littleton, also here from KMU. We're going to say a few words. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, thank you very much. John Littleton, I am the Director of Energy Services with Kansas Municipal Utilities. Could not add more to Mr. Skidmore's comments, or we appreciate that. And he's exactly right. It takes a lot of commitment from the student to actually obtain the certification and go through the process. There's a lot of information they actually have to do, a lot of research, become true experts in their own field and their own right. So we appreciate John's attention to detail, his dedication to the program, and we congratulate him. He actually has earned the gold certificate for the power plant operator certification through KMU. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much. Take care.
What I particularly like about this is we're able to grow organically like this, to have people internally start somewhere and then build up and grow into the position they're in. And so I'm very thankful for those kind of opportunities that our city provides for employees. So thank you all for city management too, for encouraging this to take place in our city. So thank you all for that. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Everybody had a chance to look over the agenda for tonight?
Mr.
If
Mayor,
so, Commissioner, go ahead.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Do we have a motion? We have a second.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Move on to item 9. At this time, I'd like to give the commissioners a chance to declare any conflict or communication they've had that might influence their ability to consider today's issues impartially. Hearing none, we'll go on to item 10.
Item XA, ordinance regulating camping and storage of personal property in public space and right-of-way.
The city manager, Silcott, will present the ordinance addressing camping within public rights of way.
Honorable governing body members, this is the third presentation and discussion regarding this item. And as we had shared previously and had received several rounds of feedback and also had numerous engagement sessions with our area stakeholders and both the social capital side who provide the services to our homeless community. And the intention of this crafting is that it would be utilized by our community policing professionals as a course of last resort once all means of social or civic capital or assistance has been exhausted, and or there's unwillingness or there is a life safety issue. And the intention again is not to be wielded as a initially right out of the gate unless there's an immediate life safety issue. It's been drafted to where any sort of violations would be addressed in municipal court, and that is not a criminal nature, and would also be up to the discretion of both the prosecutor and the judge for how that would be proceeded. So what we've done is offered a stair step of violations and also a cap, a max cap for those violations, which again are subject to input from both the prosecutor and our municipal court judge for that. And I want to take the time to also thank City Attorney Finch for his work on this, as I know that we did our absolute best to craft a legal document, but not forgetting the point with which this is coming from, which is to assist those most in need and also to serve the entirety of our community. And it's specifically needed so that we can address not only those needs of that segment of our community, but also we currently do not have the span with what's on the books that covers all public right-of-way or facilities such as City Hall or other parks and pathways that could pertain and fall into this. It's also been coordinated through the efforts of our police department and Chief Weingartner with the sheriff's office, and allowed us to work with our community to try and get to a point where we're able to improve the living conditions that they may be experiencing, and to assist with site remediation and cleanup that we're already underway with our public works and our community policing division, as well as our neighborhood and community services and other volunteers. So with that, I'll turn it over for questions that the governing body may have of myself, staff, or Chief Weingartner, or Director or DJ, or any one of us, Director Neese, that you might have regarding our response and where this is coming from.
Okay. I appreciate the letter that Ms. Riggins sent, and she did recommend something about a 48-hour allowance instead of the 24 that we have proposed. And personally, I think that's fine. I can't see where another 24 hours is going to cause any more problems for us. The question I have, and maybe legal counsel can tell us on this, but if there is someone set up in an illegal area and they move, but they just move 20 feet, that doesn't count as a new 48-hour timeline. Is that correct?
So, Mr. Mayor, there's always going to be law enforcement discretion in how the laws are enforced. You'll notice that many times someone isn't pulled over for speeding when they're going 32 and a 30. Typically, there's some discretion exercised by the men and women in law enforcement, and we trust that that will be the case here as well. Not to make the language vague or overbroad, it's specific. It's to post a notice that camping in this area is prohibited. And I will tell you that very similar language exists in Topeka, and they have already utilized their ordinance to help clear some encampments down along the river. And this uses the same timeline and the same notice timeline. That is a minimum, so it can be more. And most of the enforcement actions that we've seen do give more notice, even though they're not required to. And they tend to post an area. This tends not to. Those enforcement actions that we've seen in other communities tend to be multiple folks clustered together living in an area. Here, we have seen a decrease in the population living along the levee, and that's due in large part to the efforts of our community partners and to our police department. And I would suspect that you may see something slightly different here, and that you may have one person or two people camping together. But the signage would be posted in that general area, and if the property were to be impounded, it would be difficult to go back and camp there again, because the tent, the sleeping bag, the camping stove, propane heaters, etc., would be impounded until the fine were paid. But secondarily, it would then, if they were in the same area, the first notice would suffice to ask them to move again. And if they moved to an area, say disparate, say they moved a mile down the levee but still in the city limits, then we would probably exercise a new posting. Again, that's the last resort. First resort is, can we get you to the help and services that you need? Can we make you aware of shelters that might be available, and move someone from being in that condition to a better quality of life?
And then the levee itself is owned by the city. What city property, or is Corps of Engineers own this?
It's controlled and managed by the Army Corps of Engineers,
Okay.
but there's a duty for the city to maintain and take care of that floodway.
All right. And if we do confiscate their property, I assume there's some way we will inventory all their items so that we'll be able to properly document that they say they'd had a computer here, but we didn't get one, and they might say they left one there. It's liability issue for the city. I just wouldn't be concerned.
Unfortunately, our law enforcement officers have decades of experience at property that is collected pursuant to investigations that they undertake. Those are criminal investigations. In this case, it would not be that, but the ordinance does require that they inventory the property that they take, and that they actually go back to the place where it was taken from and post a notice of what was taken, and that way the person whose property they have can come back and say, this is my property, and pay their fine and get a fee and get it back.
And they'll be able to identify their property ownership by if they went and say those are my things, how do we know they are truthful and that these are my things? Have it set up.
And so the ordinance has the process in it. For you. The post removal notice is on page 4 and concerns a general description of the property, the date and approximate time the property was removed, statement that the property was stored in violation of the ordinance, the place where they can get the property, and that they have 90 days to do so. Property that the city impounds must be stored, and then the owner or person entitled to the impounded property may repossess the property upon submitting satisfactory proof of ownership and paying the redemption fee. A person may establish proof of ownership by, among other methods, describing the location and date when the personal property was impounded and providing a reasonably specific and detailed description of the personal property.
Okay, great, thank you. Any more questions anyone have?
Attorney Finch, on the distance within a dangerous or unsafe structure, I know you had mentioned, dilapidated, unsafe structures. Is that 10-foot kind of standard language instead of almost specifying on a parcel where that structure exists? Or would there be spots on a parcel that you would technically be more than 10 foot away from the building that would almost be a gray area in terms of kind of the ordinance?
So there's two sections there, and two subsections in section 3, Commissioner. The first is subsection 3, within 10 feet of any doorway, loading dock, stairway, fire escape, or public restroom. So that 10 feet restriction applies to those areas. And we have seen camping take place in those areas, in and around public restrooms, in and around doorways and loading docks. And then the second one that you're talking about is subsection E, and that's any property that contains a structure that's been declared a nuisance, been condemned, or lacks a certificate of occupancy or does not have current utility. So anywhere on that lot where there is a condemned structure, camping would be prohibited. But the 10 feet restriction only applies to that subsection C.
Yeah, I apologize. I was reading the analysis.
Yep.
Thank you. Very good.
Mayor, if I could ask Chief Weingartner to speak on this. I had some questions for him back when we were first introduced to this, and I think he explained some things very well, especially in regards to them having essentially internal procedures or policies in relation to this. So it will go hand in hand, but their procedures may look a little different. So if you could explain a little bit about that.
On the collection and storage of the property side of it?
Really, maybe overall enforcement, if
Yeah.
that's okay.
Sure. Yeah, so under the community policing units kind of directive, this will support their initiatives, and all of the work that they have done up until today will continue if this ordinance is approved. None of the work they do pre the ordinance is going to change. It only enhances the things that they're able to do after the ordinance passes, and our approach will not change. It is always going to be enforcement as a last resort. We know a lot of the people that we are working with are already in a precarious situation, and we do not want to add to that burden by starting with enforcement, assessing a fine that they may not be able to pay, and certainly add that stress and burden to their life. So the team's really conscious of that. All of the questions that you all have asked, and the community has asked, and our community partners have asked, were first asked of me by our community policing team. And they had probably asked some of the toughest questions in this, because they know they're going to be the ones going out doing the work that we're going to ask them to do if this passes. So none of that approach will change as long as we're involved and as long as that community police is involved. And again, I'm going to go back and say what I've said a few times before, but to thank the commission and the community and the city manager for allowing the support, especially the financial support, to allow that community policing team and the crisis corresponder to work. It has been a huge add value to our community and our department. And I think they've demonstrated how good of the work they can do. And that's going to continue with the ordinance.
Thank you. I really appreciate the statement, enforcement as a last resort. So that's exactly what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any more questions of the chief while he's at the microphone?
Thank you.
All right, thanks, chief.
And again, our purpose is to support the vulnerable populations that we have in the community and to balance concerns in preserving public spaces and supporting our economic and community well-being, while also having a process that fosters collaboration and support for assisting in the humane treatment of our unhoused population, and so that we can support that collective response in our community.
We do have public comments, correctly? Okay. Let me just read this before we call on the people to make public comments. Subject to the above restrictions, persons who wish to address the City Commission regarding items on the agenda may do so as that agenda item is called. Persons who wish to address the City Commission regarding items not on the agenda and that are under the jurisdiction of the City Commission may do so at this time when called upon by the mayor. Comments on personnel matters and matters pending in court or with other outside tribunals are not permitted. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Any presentation is for informational purposes only. The governing body will take comments under advisement. Who do we have today?
Julie Riggin.
Julie, you come forward. Good afternoon, Julie.
Good afternoon. I would just like to say, as a last-ditch effort, this is setting a precedence. And so I appreciate Chief Weingartner's comments, but when it comes down to it, when he retires or he moves on, we have a precedent. Mr. Silcott has said we want to help them, point them to shelter. My question is, where? There's no place in Ottawa. Lawrence is not taking people who do not live in Lawrence, Douglas County. And they will be the first to tell you that. They have to be in Lawrence for at least, I believe it's 2 weeks at the very minimum, before they will even consider sheltering them, because they have their own issues. Topeka was mentioned. Ottawa is very different than Topeka. Very different than Topeka. We know these neighbors. Topeka, their commissioners, their city council, they don't know these people. They're homeless. So I ask each of you, when you vote, to keep in mind who you are affecting and how much you are affecting their lives. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Julie. We have any other comments? That's it, okay. Well, I'll just say this, I know that it was a concern, and I heard a lot of feedback over the last several years, in fact, of some of the people hanging around Legacy Square and the Goppert Children's Park, and I know that was a major concern, a lot of the people that didn't feel like they were safe or didn't feel comfortable going to those facilities we paid a lot of money for to provide for our citizens. For the last year or so, I've not heard any complaints on that property. I haven't seen anybody around there. Maybe they are. I don't know where they are or where they went, but I'm not seeing the ones I used to. And so that part of me thinks, okay, maybe some of this is working. Maybe not to the extent it should be, but maybe it's working already. But I don't know. Anyone else want to comment on this?
I think, kind of following Julie's idea, and I've talked to a lot of folks about this as well, and a lot of folks, and I had the initial idea at one point of, is there a space? Can you find somewhere for them to go to isolate, kind of a specific space for that? And when you really start fleshing that idea out, I've learned a lot, so I appreciate all those people who've had conversations with me as well in terms of who governs that, who has liability for that, those types of things that are hard. Does the city, if they're on city property, have that liability? If they're on Hope House properties, at Hope House? And I think a larger issue obviously ties into this, and we're not going to answer that with approving or denying this ordinance, and figuring out how that may work best. But I think for me, I know specifically kind of bringing up some of those thoughts and how that true liability of allowing a space really does work when it's not personal property. And so just kind of something that I've had to kind of keep in mind throughout this whole process is, how does that look, and who are the community partners that if something down the line were to be looked at, continue to work with those existing community partners we have and find a solution that is, Julie kind of said, humane to those most vulnerable in the community, but also protects kind of everyone else as well.
And I would like to agree and build on that. I would say definitely, whether this passes or not, I think it's a conversation to continue having, finding solutions, and not just let it stop here.
And what do you all think about the 24 hours versus 48? I get some opinions on that as well. I think Julie requested 48. And I see no problem with that myself, but what do the other commissioners think of that time frame if we pass this?
I think 48 is acceptable.
Okay.
I would certainly agree. I don't have a problem with 48 unless law enforcement would potentially see an issue where there may be situations arise that they need shorter notice.
I think there are some situations a shorter notice can be given if there is some kind of illegal activity going on, or you recognize some things going on there, it can be accelerated. So that's good to know too, at your discretion.
I disagree. I look at our city attorney. If we change it to 48, we can't say like, oh yeah, well today we just want it to be 2. mean, there's not leeway in with, yes, City Attorney Finch?
Well,
Certainly, if there's
No,
criminal
it's
activity,
just
law
illegal.
enforcement has additional authority to get in. But that's not really the focus of this ordinance. I would say that if the commission were to say as a matter of course, they would like there to be 48 hours, I think that the, police can post and give 48 hours. This is the minimum. And so once you set a new minimum, that is the minimum. And there's not going to be an exception under this ordinance for law enforcement or anyone else to go in and say, well, now we're going to, today we think it's important enough because this business owner is complaining about something in Legacy Square that we're going to now make it 24. It's either, you can always give more time than the minimum. You can't give less than the minimum.
Yeah. Because I was reading that about if contraband may be removed at any time by this without prior notice, and so I'm thinking that's what I was referring to. That's not enters into the hours, I guess.
I think that's one example, but I mean, I guess I continue to hearken back to what our city attorney just said. It's the minimum. We're not talking about the maximum. I mean, we're not talking about giving people grace, but saying like, hey, 24 hours is the minimum we're going to give. So I'm not sure 48 hours isn't, 48 hours could be given. But if we change it to 48 hours, it's always 48 hours is the starting spot.
Some historical perspective may be helpful. This ordinance was not drafted this year. This ordinance was drafted 2 years ago at a time when there were business owners coming to the commission, calling commissioners and saying, hey, we have a problem. Legacy Square was essentially the restrooms were unusable during all but the most major of events. And then the Grants Pass case from the Ninth Circuit and from the state of Oregon went up to the Supreme Court. And the decision was made to hold on this until we got an opinion from the Grants Pass case. So that opinion just came down earlier this year, and this item came back to you on the agenda. And so one might argue, well, the circumstances have changed. Yes, to some extent, and that's a measure of success of what's gone on. But just because we look outside and see conditions today, this is drafted to cover not only what we've seen in the past, some of what we see today, but also to account for what we may see in the future. And I would just say that the maximum extent of flexibility that you can give law enforcement is probably better on things like notice, but understanding and asking them to give as much grace or as much time as possible is also well within your purview as policymakers for the city. But maybe that will help in terms of understanding the timeline on why is this coming up now, and why did we draft the way we did.
Well, I guess if it came up on the 24 hours and someone said, look, can I have another 8 hours or 16 hours, the law enforcement would make that decision at that point, yes or no. That's like you said, the speeding ticket thing with, I get what
Attorney Finch, could you kind of clarify on camp, kind of at the very end of that first sentence, it says, or living in a parked vehicle. Along those lines, I've had people ask if someone has a camper or an RV in their driveway on personal property. I know that kind of gets into potentially a gray area. Is that something that's included in this? Is that an option for homeless folks if someone has an RV that's in their driveway for someone to reside in that, or is that kind of in parked vehicle?
What page are you looking at? The very first page?
Under definitions, sorry,
Okay.
section 2,
Page 6.
under camp.
On page 1.
Packet page
R6,
6.
year
Page
one.
1 of the ordinance,
Page one of the ordinance.
packet page 6.
Section 2 under camp, it goes down through the sheets, luggage, backpacks. Then it says using any tents or living in a parked vehicle.
Mm-hmm. So right now, your zoning ordinance doesn't allow people to set up an RV and live in an RV and essentially turn a single family lot into a two-family dwelling by adding that recreational vehicle. We allow for the parking of recreational vehicles and the storage of recreational vehicles, but not the use as campers on those lots. So you'd have an interplay between the zoning ordinance as well. And we would probably, were someone to say, hey, the in-laws are in town and, Christmas vacation style, Cousin Eddie's going to live outside in the RV for the week, we'd probably address that through the zoning code rather than through the camping ordinance.
Any other comments on this? Or any other questions?
This is this is one of those taboo conversations we never like to have, quite honestly. We try to do the best we can setting up here to balance what we can do for the individuals that are homeless and also what's best for the individuals that make substantial investments in our community, whether it's their houses or their businesses. And that's where I'm, I'm pretty sure we all are having that internal argument amongst ourselves, because I want to believe that this ordinance isn't all bad, as some people are trying to make it out to be. Chief mentioned the other day about the individual that it took 4 years for her to get the help that she needed and is in a better place today than where she was 4 years ago. And I can't help but wonder, and maybe Julie, if you can answer this for me, I can't help but wonder if we had an ordinance like this, would it help provoke that? Would it help move that along a little bit quicker? Because and hear me out real quick. Sure. If I'm an individual out there and I continually get my stuff taken, do I finally get to the point that I'm tired of that and maybe I make a different choice where it's not?
My personal opinion is no.
Okay.
And I'll make it quick. Most of the time, these people have a mental illness. And so until we can gain their trust and get them into a program, I don't think it will make a difference, because they've got nothing. And they're going to come to either the Blessing Box or Hope House to get that $25 so they can get their stuff back. And that's just the way, they're not going to have $25. And so essentially it'll be Hope House or the Blessing Box paying that $25, $50, $100, whatever you want to call it. I'm willing to pay for it out of my own pocket. I don't want to defy what the city has said, but my heart says I can't allow someone to just be stranded, especially we're in December. If this would have came up in early spring, early summer, it wouldn't be such a slap in the face. I don't mean any disrespect to anyone, but this hurts. And as an empath, which is my own issue, it really hurts me. And I will continue to do whatever I can to help these people, whether they're homeless. Not that it makes much difference, but we're working with someone who does have shelter, but has dementia. And he's often in my store. I'm going to help anybody that needs help, regardless of what their situation is. So that's my personal opinion. I could be wrong. I hope that I am wrong, but I don't think, after seeing everything that has transpired in the last 6 years that I've been working with the homeless, I don't see that happening.
Thank you, Julie. I appreciate your opinion.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns, comments? Which direction you want to move with this, commissioners? Or we could table this for another week if we need more time.
I'd be okay with waiting a little longer to make a decision.
Okay. Is it good with everybody? We'll just
I would ask for the staff's perspective if we could at least get a formal motion to table it. That way, whenever the commission desires to address the issue again, it can be removed. table in business.
Okay.
So do we want to table it for an extended period of time, or do we just want to move it on for a week?
Wish of the commission. I can do either way. Move it indefinitely or for another week.
I would say I think a week's fine. I mean, I think if we table it indefinitely, we're just kicking the can down the road for a problem for either a future commission, for someone. I mean, we're making people unhappy either way we go, and I think it's our responsibility to do that. Ultimately make a decision that we think's best for the people we're serving, as unpopular as it may be. If that's next week, I mean, I think at some point, if it's spring, if we want to say we want to wait till winter's done and do it in March, that's fine. I just hate the idea of tabling it indefinitely, just because we're, not that we are, but if we were just scared to make a decision. I think if we have a reason that we are pushing it here in December, as Julie had mentioned, I think I could get behind that. But for lack of a better solution there, I would rather make a decision whichever way that goes than postpone it almost indefinitely.
I will say, I'm a little bit confused on it because I understand by the ordinance we're essentially asking people to move their camps, and likely that would probably be just outside of city limits, just realistically speaking. I don't want to sound heartless, but I'm not sure what the difference in doing that in December or moving their camp in May is. Like, we're not taking someone from a warm shelter and putting them outside. We're just asking for camps to be moved. So I also don't know that I see the value in waiting a long time. I would be fine postponing it a week. If anybody has any questions still, I've had all mine answered, but if the commission wants to deliberate another week, that's fine.
Chief, sorry to ask you a question again since you'd already sat down. And obviously I know you can't speak on anything, I guess, that you probably have actively going. Is there concerns currently that from your perspective, you're looking to use this tool once it's in place soon? As I know, because we've talked, this is kind of
No.
not a last ditch effort, but kind of that once we've exhausted some efforts.
The answer is no.
Okay. Thank you. I think that, for me, that answer is kind of, if it's a week, if it's whatever that timeline looks like, we're not, there's no point, I mean, not no point, pardon me on that, no pressing issue that we're trying to kind of help solve.
I mean, we're going out every day
Yeah.
working with the
Yes.
individuals that are still out there, but currently I don't know that there's an encampment that within the other ordinances available to us, which we have exercised and used already to clean up and move camps. We currently don't have one active today that I'm aware of, but we are working every day with people in this community that are homeless.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the will of the commission? You want to wait 1 week? You want it indefinite? Bring it up in the spring? I'd like to hear some recommendations.
Mr. Mayor, I'd be okay with waiting a week.
1 week? We have consensus for 1 week? Table this?
That's not what our city manager is asking for. He's asking for a motion to
Well,
table.
what I'm asking for essentially is direction on when you would like this considered again, so that we're not bringing it up weekly, or that we're doing it in a timely manner that's at the desire of the commission. That was ultimately what I was reaching for.
Mr. Mayor, I'd be okay with seeing this on our 18th agenda.
There we go. And I think we don't need a motion for that. We can just move it to the next week's agenda and we'll go on the 18th. So let's do it then. All right. Thank you all for your input and we'll see what we can work out for you. Thank you. Move on to new business.
Item 11A, ordinance for hasty awards IRBs.
This ordinance authorizes issuance of industrial revenue bonds, which will provide a sales tax exemption on materials and equipment for Hasty Awards expanded facility. We have Tyler with us today.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Nice to be with you this afternoon. The next two agenda items do relate to Hasty Awards expansion. And before I get into the presentations, I'd like to mention that there are two individuals here that have joined us this afternoon. One, of course, is Mr. Steve Hasty, the owner of Hasty Awards. He's available to answer any questions that you have about the project. I also would like to introduce my colleague, Emma Kate Dillon, here in the front row sitting next to me. She is a new colleague of ours. She summered with our firm in 2023. We managed not to scare her off, and so she's back. She's joined us in September as part of our Kansas Public Finance Group. So,
Great. Glad to
yeah,
have you.
yeah.
Tyler, are you leaving us?
I'm not leaving you, no.
Okay,
No, that's not the plan.
okay.
So,
All right.
so the first item here is the ordinance authorizing the issuance of the IRBs for the Hasty Awards expansion. And the recommendation, the request is that the City Commission approve this ordinance, which authorizes the issuance of the bonds in an amount not to exceed $2.1 million. In terms of the project background, this is a roughly 21,500 square foot expansion to Hasty's existing facility. The total project budget is about $3 million. The reason that the par amount of the bonds is $2.1 million is that's the value of the sales tax exemption. Typically, an industrial revenue bond can be used to provide a property tax abatement in addition to sales tax exemption. In this case, we have a separate tool, a constitutional abatement that we're using to provide this 55% 10-year abatement here. And so that's the reason for the second agenda item, the second ordinance. This ordinance formally approves the abatement for a 10-year term and authorizes the city to enter a payment in lieu of tax agreement. The payment in lieu of taxes is that 45% that's not abated, and it's in a subsequent slide here, but it's worth noting that the abatement here is not on the land, it's just on the facility, and it's only on the expansion facility. It's not on their existing building. So it's pretty narrowly tailored to the expansion that they've constructed here.
Very good.
We covered the project background previously. Here are some details on the constitutional abatement, but we talked about it being 55% for 10 years. One item to note is that this is consistent with your economic incentive policy. So your incentive policy starts at a 50% abatement. There's a 5% increase for existing businesses, and so 55% is exactly in line with what your policy targets.
Good. Any more questions of Tyler? Not, where do you want to go on item 11B?
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner.
I move that we approve the ordinance for Hasty Awards constitutional abatement.
Good. Is there a second on this?
I'll second.
There's a second. Any other discussion on this? Not, let's take a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton?
Yes.
And Mayor Skidmore.
I vote yes too. The motion carries. Thank you, Stephen, very much. Thank you, Tyler.
All right,
Good
thank
work.
you all.
Thank you too for being here. Now you know how to do it, right? That's the right way here. This guy gets a good lesson. Thanks, guys. Move on to item C.
City Hall Commission Room Construction Firm Selection.
Request approval to award the recommended bid for the City Hall Commission Room Modernization Project. This follows a comprehensive evaluation of bids received through the formal bidding process.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners.
Commissioner, Saunders, go ahead.
We'll walk through this. So we had the RFQ earlier this year where we selected Goldberg Group Architects. They came in and solicited feedback from the commission, incorporated that into their design. And so we did an RFP for the construction services of who would build that design in this room. So we had a pretty big meeting that was attended by 9 external representatives, probably 14 people altogether. And then December 6th was the submission deadline. We received 4 bids, and they are listed here. You've had a chance to take a look at those. City staff recommends accepting Lloyd Builders' bid for this project due to their construction timeline of 8 weeks, the competitive pricing, and the work that can align with the quality standards for the millwork. And so I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have about this recommendation. Ideally, we would like action today to accept the bid.
The big thing that jumped out to me was that 16 weeks to get it completed. I mean, that's almost 4 months. I just thought, wow, that's I like the idea that Lloyd Builders can do it in half that amount of time. But rest of you feel about this.
I know at one point we had had a conversation about actually not about raising the ceiling. Did that get knocked out?
Yeah, when they really took a look above the ceiling tiles,
It's just
there
not.
maximum maybe 8 inches of space to really do anything, so they figured that it just wasn't worth it.
Paul, were there other sorry, sir,
No.
were there other contributing factors besides the timeline from the difference of bid 1 and bid 2? Because there's a significant dollar amount difference.
So
Did bid 1 maybe leave something out, maybe not cover something?
I think, and I tried to explain a little bit here as far as the QCP labels for the Architectural Millwork Institute. They have you can get certified. So if you're certified to install woodworking, and so they noted, the Cohen Construction noted on their bid that it excluded the QCP labels for the millwork. And so I don't know if that is a major, I don't know what the cost of having a qualified, certified person on hand to do the millwork. I don't know if that's a factor. I don't know if the timeline is a factor, but there's a significant cost increase for sure.
Well, do you know the amount we had? I think it was $250 for the total budget. Do you know the amount that was kind of earmarked towards construction?
It was, I think we were expecting less than 150, so I think that this will leave, and maybe I have that on my last slide here. This will leave enough for, the audio video upgrades and the other stuff that we're hoping to do.
In the administration line item?
That's like permitting, the publishing the bid, anything like paperwork related, I guess.
Any other questions on this item?
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, Commissioner.
I move that we approve the construction bid firm selection as listed in item C on the agenda. Item.
Bid number 2 you're talking.
Yes.
Okay. Second on that.
I'll second.
There's a second. Okay. Any other discussion on this? Take a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Clayton?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Allen?
Yes.
And Mayor Skidmore?
I'll vote yes too. Motion carries. Thanks. No, it's unintentional.
Thank you.
Unintentional pin
Okay,
drill.
I respect that. I totally respect it either way. We'll move on to item D.
Applications for 2025 cereal malt beverage licenses.
The applications have been reviewed and approved by the police department and the city attorney with no grounds for denial. And Clerk Reed.
It is recommended that the City Commission review and consider the approval of the 2025 cereal malt beverage applications. CMB is defined in Kansas Statutes 41-2701, which encompasses beer containing not more than 6% alcohol volume when sold by a retailer. We have 2 different types of licenses. We have on-premise consumption and then not for consumption on-premise. Our application process overview. Applications are submitted to the city on an annual basis. They're reviewed by our city attorney and the police department. We also do KBI checks free of charge on all our applicants. The approved applications are reported and appropriate fees are submitted to the Kansas Department of Revenue. And the final step in this process is the City Commission reviews and issues final approval. We have all renewals for this year. We don't have any new applications. So these are all renewals that have had a CMB for 2024. Our financial considerations for a general retailer. So $225 per calendar year, $25 of that goes to the Kansas Department of Commerce. And then our limited retailers are $75 per calendar year with a $25 stamp fee going to the Department of Commerce. And we would recommend that you take final action today to approve the applications or refer these to December 18th for further evaluation. I would just state that their applications or their current licenses do expire December 31st. And so to continue to operate, we would need to make a decision by December 18th in order to continue licensing. And I would stand for any questions.
And the only question I've got for the consumption on the premises, we've got more restaurants that serve alcohol than the 3 here. Those others are not up for renewal. Is that it?
Those 3 just serve cereal malt beverage. So it's the beer under 6%. We have other restaurants that may have a drinking establishment license or a different type of license, and those are regulated individually.
See, I'm pretending like I don't know what you're talking about. So, okay, thank you.
Can you go back to the list of renewals, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just want to see that again. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion that we approve 11D on our agenda.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. Any other discussion on this? We'll give the clerk time to get caught up with her. All right, let's take a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Mayor Pro Tem Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
And Mayor Skidmore?
And I'll vote yes too. The motion carries. So thank you, Clerk Reed, for your work on that. Next item would be E.
Request for approval of temporary building rental for Ottawa Golf Course.
Consider approving the rental of a temporary building for the Ottawa Golf Course to facilitate essential operations and enhance patron services. We have Director Landis.
All right, thank you. So the reason that we're bringing this item to you is, as you know, we take management over of the golf course on December 30th of this year. And once this was authorized for us to move in the direction of that management transition, we gathered a team of our city employees that have some experience and extended knowledge in some of the areas that outside of just myself going and doing a review of the course, the facilities, and the including the clubhouse. And we walked away with some concerns about our timeline and being able to offer that clubhouse to our patrons and golfing community going, in the immediate future of us transitioning on January 15th. Currently, the clubhouse has an extensive need for work, and some of those listed items there is a roof replacement, the deck replacement, interior ceiling and wall replacements, the HVAC systems, more than one, and just ADA compliance in general. And so we looked at this from a necessity and safety standpoint. There are obviously some other upgrades and things that could be done to the clubhouse as well, but these are some of the larger, costlier items. And so we tried to focus on the necessity and safety perspective here. So in our quest to come up with some solutions, a temporary facility to be used as a check-in and to sell concessions and to basically be able to welcome our golfers to the course was one of the solutions that we came up with. And as we started to research, there was a couple of companies that we got quotes from. And while I understand that, so what this is largely a mobile office space, and they use these at multiple golf courses. And essentially, we can use that space within any way we see fit. But we see it as being used for not just office space, obviously, but we would have a need to store items so that we could provide food and drink. That it would have some office space, some storage space, and also maybe a mobile counter that we could serve for check-ins, for concession sales, all of the things that are needed to basically run that operational side that it's not related to the grounds maintenance piece of the business. The exterior of the building could include a ramp, the stairs, even pergolas, some tables and chairs out back, those types of things that we could use to enhance the look and feel of the building and the welcoming feel when you arrive to the golf course. And the purpose behind calling this a temporary facility is because this is something that we can bring in fairly short order and it would give us time to make a decision and proceed with a longer term solution for the clubhouse or replacement of the clubhouse and what we want that area to look like, if we need to do some other design of how we'd like the look and feel of the course itself to be. This gives us time to do those things. At this point, we don't necessarily have a lot of time to do that. So with that in mind, and I wanted to be able to show you, I don't know how to use I'm sorry. So on this drawing, first of all, I want to thank Justin Carey and his crew for doing some of the work on this, which is going out and shooting grade to see if it was even possible, making sure that we located all the utilities to see if it's possible, and then coming up with a solution. This one. Thank you so much. And so we originally had looked at multiple areas, or a couple of different areas around the existing clubhouse to be able to place this. And our best effort comes to the south end of the parking lot right here. And it does limit the number of parking spaces we would have to remove in order to place a temporary building there. It would allow us to go ahead and build a patio behind it onto the green space that is existing. And they will be able to extend with the addition of one light pole, and then they will have to do some boring under the parking lot for the sewer to be able to place that there as well. Those are basically the items that come with placing it there and using this location. The idea then would be that the current clubhouse would be not open to the public. We would do what's necessary to basically not be able to access the existing deck, and those would be the immediate alterations that would be made that your current members or current users of the golf course would see as different at this point. When we went and got these quotes, there's two of them. I believe it's United and Satellite, and the one that was the lower number was the $29,900, and that is for 1 year's worth of rental. There is an upfront fee for delivery and the setup of the facility, and then our crews would take the charge of building the rest. Of course, we could rent the rest, we could purchase the rest, but we have some incredibly talented crews that can do a lot of the work. And so we were able to use that to basically lower the amount of cost that we would have up front. So with all of that said, happy to answer questions. And as far as timeline goes, of course, we do we transition our management on December 30th. We have a 2-week period in which we are changing over, and we'll be basically back open to the public on January 15th. And so we would be shooting for bringing in that temporary building between in that time frame. I cannot get outside of that. I have not gone to visit a building. I did receive a few other pictures, but we would want to make sure that it would be a facility that would be welcoming and something that we could work with the space inside of and all of those things. But we wanted to bring it to you first to make sure that we could move in that direction.
Good.
So the delivery and setup fee, is there also at the back end also a fee for
That's
removal?
included in that number. So they charge it as a one-time upfront fee, and that includes delivery, setup, tear down, and removal.
Okay.
So that would basically you're paying up front for that removal.
And it doesn't matter how many years you have it. I mean, if we don't happen to have it done in a year, still.
Correct. And they actually charge based on 30 days. For us, it wouldn't make sense to pay the one-time upfront fee and only keep it for 30 days. Right. I wouldn't think. But if we decided it's a year and 3 months, it could be that as well. It could be 3 years. It could be whatever we want that to be.
Director Landis, so will the existing clubhouse not be in use anymore, or just in use to the golf patrons, or not in use to the golf patrons?
Not in use to the golf patrons.
So the caterer will still be using it?
We would anticipate that would continue for a period of time.
And is this so that we can kind of get a game plan together of what we want to do for a new building, or are we looking at
Yes.
renovation of the existing one?
I do not have a grand total of renovation of the existing, but the recommendation would be a new building that would replace the existing.
I'm glad you said that, because if it was my opinion, I'd certainly lean more towards that direction too. I just think that it's maybe too far gone for to put that kind of money into a renovation instead of just starting fresh.
Yes.
One other question, is the new building insured for stray golf balls? Because where you're putting it, they can tend to get past that one green.
That's a great question. We will have to talk about that, but we will work with our risk manager to make sure that we have
no
the proper
concern.
insurance.
Not because of me, I
I've
promise.
been banned, so it's no concern. Yeah.
Okay, Mike's
All right.
good.
I've been banned. All right. Good. Any other questions on this topic?
One question I had sent to me was, does this essentially include, is there a need for a contractor to come in because we're erecting a structure, we're attaching utilities to it? I guess somebody basically kind of had a concern, and is that included in this delivery and set up for either what a pad that it's going to sit on, or how does that, done by us, done by them, and kind of how that works in terms of kind of that process?
So they would serve as the. I might need to come back to you with that answer, but in my conversations with our neighborhood services department and what that permit looks like, because we're bringing in a temporary building, the connection of the utilities and that would need a contractor to apply for that permit, and we are working on what that would look like, and we may have the opportunity we need to research the opportunity to use our contracted employees, our employees that have licenses, to be able to apply as that contractor. And then we also need to research a little bit how that works for the bringing in of the temporary building. So they're really two parts.
Yeah.
So the building of some sort of patio to accompany the building, and then the pad for the building and the
Yeah, because that
however
area,
that
there's
works.
a decent slope. If you're running east
There
to
is.
west there.
Yes,
kind of
there
what that
is.
grade would kind of look like if it's.
Yes.
Do you know, is it on like slab? Is it almost like, is it on cinder blocks, kind of similar to you see with, do you have any details around that, or is it?
I don't know what happens underneath of there,
Okay.
but I can tell you that we've talked about a skirting that you would typically see under a mobile facility like that, that we would upgrade that to basically match the facade of the facility and to make it look nicer and be more sturdy in the wind, all of those things. I cannot tell you what happens behind the skirting.
So we feel pretty good on the dollar amount, that we're not going to have large chunks come kind of in the process and some of those other kind of tertiary things.
Yeah, so we had known that there was going to be other costs for around the clubhouse, the other things that need to happen, and we had built into our budget. Now, keep in mind, we're going to be reworking that budget on a daily basis as we get into this, but we had built some dollars into our expectations for that, knowing that we were going to have to go do some sort of improvements somewhere. And so those costs, I mean, we're guessing that it could be somewhere around the $20,000 range if we did a pergola with the patio and the type of patio and the size of patio and what type of ramp, and if you did some sort of entryway, whatever, to the front of the facility. We could make that whatever we want within the budgeted dollars that we might have available to do that. And so we have some flexibility there, I guess, if you will, but those dollars were kind of built into we know there's something we need to do, and now we're at the point where this would be an option of what we can do.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so that's
Does
on
that
top
answer?
of these two numbers.
That what?
That's on top of the 29.9 and 12.
It is.
Okay.
Mhm. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of Director Landis? Not direct. What direction you want to go on item 11E?
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner.
I move that we approve item E on our agenda.
Okay. Is there a second on this?
I'll second.
There's a second. Any other discussion?
Melody, do you know, kind of what's a lifespan of something like this? Say we get to the point that as we're doing the golf course, we kind of realize that our version of temporary is a little longer term temporary. Would this stay for 5 years, 10 years? If structurally, I guess when it's built, if it stays longer than 3 years, is there kind of a rough time frame where we may need to send this back and get a new one? How would that kind of look longer term if it ends up staying?
So along the lines of the question of could we send it back and get a new one, we could do that. And we would have that one-time expense again. I will need to go to our permitting process and ask some questions about the length of time that temporary means and what that looks like long-term, and at what point it becomes a permanent facility and what that process looks like. So I'm sorry, I can't
that's-
answer that for you right
That's
now.
why I was just thinking, back in the day, middle school, moved to portable structures. That length of time kind of like lengthened unexpectedly. And
Yeah.
if that happens here, kind of what does that look like over a decade or potentially longer?
Well, and I will tell you that when we started looking at other golf courses, there are lots of successful courses that use a building exactly like this as their permanent structure for long term, without the intent of doing anything else. So we haven't had that conversation yet because we need to do more deep dive into what that would look like.
I think I've seen these at Augusta, haven't I? Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe not. Maybe not. No, probably not.
Is this a new structure? Or it's been used in other?
It would be new.
Okay. What direction you want to go? Well, I guess that was the discussion
Yeah.
part. Let's go
Sorry.
ahead and take a roll call vote, please. There we go.
How do you vote, Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton?
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes.
And Mayor Skidmore?
I'll vote yes too. That motion carries. Thanks.
Thank you.
Move on to item F. I guess I'll take care of that part. So anyway, I just want to say thank you for your support. I really do believe we work in a collaborative effort up here, the five of us. We want to enact and bring forward to the people good policy, good ordinances, ones that we are proud of, as well as benefit the people. The people are themselves are the ones that voted us in. They can vote us out. And so I appreciate the fact that we respect that process, and it works as far as I'm concerned. So we've had good days, we had bad days, but that goes with any job, right? So can't complain about that. I've been reading through the Psalms recently, and a chapter a day is really good. Just a recommendation for everybody. I'm up to about 100, but a couple weeks ago I read Psalm 90, verse 17. It said this: Lord our God, treat us well. Give us success in what we do. Yes, give us success in what we do. And that's been my prayer since that day I read that, and I'll keep praying that direction for not only just today, but for our future. So it's been a great run. Thank you all for your support. And that's all I got to say.
And
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we have a plaque for you, and it says, in appreciation to Mike Skidmore for his service as mayor, January 2024 to January 2025.
Thank you very much. And with that, I am very pleased to make a motion that we will move Pro Tem Emily Allen up to the mayor's position. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. No discussion on this necessary, I guess. Let's go by vote of acclamation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. I'm going to scoot down one chair. Personal effects. Yeah. Pardon. Oh.
Right. We'll do your oath of office. If you could repeat after me. Raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Emily Allen,
Solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of Kansas,
of the State of Kansas,
and faithfully discharge
and faithfully discharge
the duties of mayor
the duties of mayor
of the City of Ottawa, Kansas.
of the City of Ottawa, Kansas. God, so help me I just have a few quick comments. I'll keep it short and sweet. I had a root canal this morning, and I didn't think it would be too bad, and it was indeed too bad. So I would like to thank the citizens for electing me a few years ago back into this seat as commissioner. It is a job that I never have taken lightly and that I will never take lightly. I'd also like to thank my fellow commissioners for trusting me to be your mayor. You can rest assured I'll give it my all for both you and our citizens. And since I'm kind of treating this like an Oscar speech, I'll also thank my family for giving up their time with me so that way I can be here every week and sometimes several times a week. To my kids, I hope this is just a little view of what you can do on your own if you just try. Thank you for being my little commission partners who used to sit under my desk and who always kept me on my toes. You're now driving cars on the roads that we discussed years ago in those meetings, and that makes me proud and a little scared. I have served as commissioner for over 6 years in total, and I've seen a lot of changes in our city over that time. From changes in staff to improvements to buildings and roads and businesses coming and going. Through all of this, I've had the opportunity to learn from some of the very best mayors that anybody could have. They've literally paved the road before me, and I will follow in your steps. I'll end on a quick quote because I want to remind you this is not just about us up here, it's about all of Ottawa. Ronald Reagan once said, "The greatest leader is not necessarily the one who does the greatest things. He is the one who gets the people to do the greatest things." So let's do great things, and thank you. Oh, and that's me now. Okay. So we'll move to item J.
City Commission nomination and election of Mayor Pro Tem for the 2025 term.
Madam Mayor,
Commissioner.
initially, first of all, forgive me if during the year I happen to say Mr. Mayor. I'm kind of used to that for a while. But Madam Mayor, I'd like to make the nomination that we elect Commissioner Clayton as our Mayor Pro Tem.
We have a second.
I will second.
And we are going to vote by acclamation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. Commissioner Clayton. Pro Tem Clayton.
I don't think he voted one way or the other. And I was looking to see if he was
I don't
going to
know if
vote
you're-
yay or nay. I was
Yeah.
like, whoa.
Do you not want to be?
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
know.
you can
No,
say
it's
no,
emphatic, yeah.
absolutely.
And it still passes.
You got no choice now.
The oath of office. Raise your right hand and after me. I state your name.
I, Zachary Clayton,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United
States
States and the Constitution
of the State of Kansas
and faithfully discharge the duties
and faithfully discharge the duties
of Mayor Pro Tem
of Mayor Pro Tem
of the City of Ottawa, Kansas.
of the City of Ottawa, Kansas.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
And we have item L, comments by our newly appointed Mayor Pro Tem.
I think I was I didn't write a speech, to thank the Academy. I should have thought about that. First and foremost, I do want to thank the folks at this dais, the dais around us, and all the city staff. Coming in new to this a few years ago, it was really daunting and scary. They say it's drinking from a fire hose, and you think you know a lot about what goes on at a city and what should happen at a city. We all have great ideas on things that we want to change and what we see, and then you get up here, and I think there's so much information that you can learn by people being involved. So I appreciate everyone who's been a part of that for me. I appreciate the dad jokes from, will say now Commissioner over there. I'm trying to learn and keep those going as well. Like Emily mentioned, this is working towards good policy, leaving a legacy for the city of Ottawa, and doing the best that we can every day. So thank you to everyone a few years ago who voted for me to get me into the seat that now is in Pro Tem. I look forward to kind of working every single day for the next year, keep us moving forward. Oh, and my family. Sorry, I add that.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh,
your-
yeah,
your
them.
new wife.
Yeah, new wife.
New
Yeah,
wife. Thanks.
Sorry, of course then.
We have item 12.
Comments by City Manager.
Honorable Mayor and Commissioners, we have the Old Highway 50 Improvement Project ribbon cutting forthcoming, and so if you're interested, please let us know. And that's tomorrow. Also, some highlights for the OMA. We got Jersey Boys starting in 2025, or Jersey Nights, I apologize. And the City Band and their Christmas concert on December 15th at 2 p.m. with free admission at the OMA. and want to highlight that we'll have 2 back-to-back holidays on December 25th and January 1st. And so we'll have a pretty stacked meeting on the 18th and then plan on returning on January 8th. However, if we do need any sort of special meeting or action that might arise unexpectedly, we'll utilize our Monday study sessions as a potential window. And with that, we'll go over that agenda on the 18th, which is the financial report, project overview, community partner funding agreements, development plan for Fairway Vistas RHID that was recently approved, the ordinance adopting the development plan, and then a presentation of Constantino's generous gift to Hope House and ECAN, and then we'll also have the annual TIF consideration for the Holiday Inn. And so that concludes my report, if there are no questions of myself or another member of the city team.
Any questions?
Oh, I did want to say one thing and say that while we're on the golf course, I'm sorry, I didn't have a chance to prepare a slide, but we have extended an offer and it has been accepted for the position of golf pro. This individual is a native of Linden and Ottawa University, and he's excited to return to the area as he has a strong connection to this area and to the community with a deep understanding of Ottawa's golf course and the significance it brings to our community. He has previously served as associate golf professional at Iron Horse Golf Club, and he's held leadership roles in such esteemed courses as Millburn Country Club and Oakwood Country Club. And we're excited to welcome Rob Mlinar, who will begin serving with us on December 20th of this year. Thanks.
And we have item 13.
Comments by governing body?
Start with Commissioner Crowley.
I just want to say congratulations to you and Mayor Pro Tem Clayton. I look forward to serving with you guys in your capacities this year.
And Commissioner Skidmore.
Yes, I echo that same thing too. I've known Emily for a long time. I've known her parents for a long time as well, and so I know she's got good bloodlines, and so you can't miss on this one. So I know you got it covered. I want to say too, the last few months I've had a lot of legal questions. Our attorney Finch has been really helpful with me. They've all been city related, of course, but he's been very helpful in answering a lot of questions for me, quick responses. You know, 99% of the attorneys out there make the rest of you look bad. And you're a good one. So congratulations on that. Keep it up, good work. I appreciate it, really do. And I also want to mention tonight, the OU is having the Vespers at 7 p.m. If I get there in time, I'll be reading some scripture there. But tonight, 7 p.m. at the chapel at OU.
Commissioner Taylor.
Congratulations to the person to my left and to the person to my right. Excited to see how you grow as leaders in the next year.
Mayor Pro Tem Clayton.
Yeah, just thank you. And then obviously congratulations to our new mayor. Excited to work hand in hand with you this next year. I did want to follow and say that Brian's comments about the golf course were pretty on par with what we expected.
No,
Oh,
so
no.
bad.
I wanted to say it earlier.
So bad.
Can I take my vote back?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was your motion,
Yeah.
actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've made bad decisions.
It's done now. It's in the minutes. And then I want to wish a happy birthday to my son who's turning 5, and I'm late for his birthday party.
Okay.
Just get used to it.
We're getting there.
Get used to it.
I don't have much other than just look forward to lots of questions from me. I'll be emailing you all soon, I'm sure, with what do I do. And with that, we have our announcements. We have December 18th, 2024 commission meeting at 10 a.m. in City Hall. We have canceled our December 25th and January 1st commission meetings, and our next one is January 8th. After that at 4 p.m. in City Hall. And if there's nothing further, we will adjourn.